The following podcast is provided by Era Living, innovator in residential retirement options since 1987. And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And we are honored again this time to be speaking with one of the amazing staff members of Era Living. And we're going to be talking this segment about the Executive Director in Training program that exists within Era Living in opportunities for their employees to advance to executive director positions and what they do. And we're going to be talking with Suzanne Vahlkamp, who is the Executive Director of University House of Issaquah. And Susan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's my pleasure.
So Susan, you started right out of college with Era Living. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up there and what your story was.
Yeah, I started as a server here with Era Living. I was looking for a job when the economy wasn't doing so well. I just started working in the dining room and really fell in love with working with seniors. They really feel good at the end of the day, sometimes better than when I walked in the door. And while I was in that role, I learned about senior living and saw the executive director position. I said, that looks like an amazing role that I can use my business degree, but also work with people and not be in a cubicle or worried about getting replaced by computers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's where my journey started. There's been a lot of steps along the way. I was a dining services director in a different community for a few years, moved into an administrative services director role before starting the executive director in training program.
That is amazing. So you obviously were part of the program. Now, was the program already in existence when you became a part of it, or were you kind of brought along and you were part of the development, I guess is my question.
I was part of the second group of executive directors in training.
Wow,
so it's something that happens periodically in the company. It's not an ongoing training program that's always running. So it's very intentional with the timing, and a couple people, just two, are selected at a time to go through that training program. So I was part of the second group.
Awesome. And how were you selected to be a part of this program?
Well, they open it up and announce that they are accepting applications for the program. It is only open to internal employees, and then you have to apply, get the blessing from your supervisor, the executive director at your community where you're working. And then it's an intensive interview process. And I think that there were a few interviews that were 2 hours long, back to back. So I think it was maybe 4 hours one day, and then another set of two interviews that were 2 hours each another day before being officially offered that role.
And you probably, I would only imagine, not only are you learning what the job is, but you're learning about the culture, are you not, of Era Living, the values, the mission, all of those things?
Absolutely. And a lot of it is really learning more about each and every role in the community that isn't the executive director.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That is the part that's really unique, I think. It's not sitting with an executive director for a year and watching what they do. It is really working with a housekeeper and with the servers and with the people that do the cooking or the
housekeeping or the maintenance people or the community relations area and all those things.
The nurses.
Yes, the nursing and all it. And in your case, I believe University House has memory care there too, doesn't it?
Actually, we don't at my
okay. I was thinking another property. Okay.
But part of the training is spending time in memory care, so you understand what that looks like when it is time for your residents to maybe transition to one of our communities that does have memory care.
So what's the program like once you get into it? What is it all involved?
So how it really starts is that you take turns being assigned with a department director in one of our communities. So I started with housekeeping first, and I spent 2 full weeks with one of our amazing housekeeping directors at one of our
Love that.
communities and learned their job,
Uh-huh.
as well as spent a full day with a housekeeper cleaning apartments, a full
Wow.
day with the custodian doing all the common areas and special projects, a full day in the laundry room. So really, during those 2 weeks, I was really deep diving into housekeeping.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then from there, I moved on to a different department at a different community. So I would spend a few weeks to maybe a whole month, depending on the department, at our different communities with some people that were identified to be really great at their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
to really see how a well-functioning department would run.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were also modules where I wasn't in a community, but it was working on leadership development
Yeah.
and interviewing and understanding the financial portion that you're responsible for as an executive director,
Sure. Sure.
going through the budget for a community for the year. And so
Yeah.
it had a lot of different aspects to it. And then at the end, you get assigned to one community as an associate executive director to
Oh,
work more
wow.
hands-on under an executive director for a portion of time as part of the program as well.
So how long is the program? Does the program last?
It is about a year.
Okay. Wow,
And
that's awesome.
plus the associate executive director portion, which
Mhm.
varies from maybe 3 months to a year, just depending on availability for executive director roles or what is necessary to really get you to be really ready for that next step.
Wow, that's awesome. And as a result, I can imagine that you really build relationships with the residents.
You do. And I think the first part of the executive director and training program, or the EDIT program that is the way that we call it,
Right.
is that you really understand the differences in all of our communities. And something that I took away from it was how we have standards at Era Living, and you can walk into any of our communities and know that it's an Era Living community by
Very
certain,
much so.
yeah, from certain things, but they're not all exactly the same. And part of that is because we really believe in customizing what we offer to the residents that live in each community.
Right.
And yes, we all might be in the Seattle area, but the residents that live at University House Wallingford are very different from the residents that live at University House Issaquah, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Different, totally different lifestyles that they've come from, usually. And then you also, which is really, I find fascinating, is you have so many residents that have moved from other places that live in your communities. And I think that brings even more of a diversity type of a culture. Wouldn't you agree with that?
It really does. And so there's just a lot of really interesting people that live in our communities. And I think part of this training program that was eye-opening for me was just seeing the different relationships that our residents have with different departments, because they're very different. The same person has a different relationship with the server in the dining room than they do with the caregiver that comes and helps them get dressed every day.
I can imagine. And there's that different aspect of trust factor with knowing. I can imagine with the residents, the benefits of a program like that is they see you participating in all different roles. So they have the opportunity to kind of know when you come on board, you've lived, in those areas. And I can imagine that's a huge benefit.
I think so. I think that the residents appreciate knowing that I'm not just somebody coming in off the street that doesn't know anything about what their lives are really like, or doesn't have any experience in a community like this, or is from a different company even. So really, I was able to also build like a lot of good relationships with my coworkers at different communities or at our home office, to really like go in day one, knowing who to ask for help and knowing who is in charge of different things to have good resources available.
That's amazing. So what would you think is the greatest benefit to a program like this?
I really think it helps as an executive director to have actually worked in every single position in the community. So you know more of what it's really like for that person in that role. And when they're asking you for more staff or they want different resources, you better understand what they're talking about and
Sure, absolutely.
can make a better informed decision or can be more proactive in a lot of ways as well.
Well, it helps you, I think, assemble a team that works together because you have that empathy and that understanding of, each role. So when you ask for something as an executive director, you know what the capacities are of every department. And I think that's something that's so amazing that you don't are unrealistic or a situation. You're building a camaraderie, I think, very much so. Wouldn't you? I mean, it's just a thought.
I think so. And I think you're just more relatable.
Sure.
Helpful, or I can really talk to the servers about what their job is like and understand their struggles. And the person that is working overnight as a caregiver to really have seen what their job is really like is very, very helpful.
I can imagine. I can only imagine. And of course, we're really excited to learn about this program, Susan. And thank you so much for being on the program.
I was excited to be invited. So it was nice to be able to speak with you about our really helpful edit program. I think without that, I don't know how I would have achieved my goal of becoming an executive director.
Well, I am really honored to meet you, and certainly all the programs that you guys have, not only for the residents, but for your employees, are just amazing. And this is amazing to look at opportunities for other people by what you're sharing. So thanks again.
Thank you, Suzanne.
And for those that are interested, you can go to eraliving.com and reach out. Maybe you might be a good candidate to be in their edit program as well. Era Living is locally owned and operates 8 premier retirement communities in Seattle, Renton, Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Issaquah. From vibrant, independent living to compassionate assisted living to secure memory care, Era Living respects and honors older adults by enhancing the quality of their lives. Learn more at eraliving.com.